Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks Captures Threats. In today's episode we're going over the Caro-Kann. So this is part of the Learn the Openings. So last time we did the London system. So today we're going over the Caro-Kann. So we're carrying on the idea of doing a white opening one week, a black opening the next week. So this is, you'll see a few similarities with this opening with something else. And why it could be better, why it could be worse. So, if you want any context, this was, as we play the first few moves, this was made by Horatio Caro and Marcus Kahn, therefore getting the names of their surnames, Caro-Kann. Both of these around the 1890s. So, this is where we start off with c6, a very outrageous move, but after the next two moves, you'll see what it's quite similar to. So, after d4, we have d5. Now, if you can see, this is almost a French defence. Now, this is what is there's always a debate whether what is better and what's not. Now, there's a few reasons we're going to go through here is what the main ideas of this Caro-Kann is. So, already, we're challenging this e4 pawn with d5, already. So this push, we've, like the French, we do that push and we get that. So, and the same thing, normally e6 supports the d5, this time we got c6. Now, unlike the French defence, the bishop here, as I'll show you now, if we played the French, this bishop's stuck. It can't get through. Whereas now, with this opening, we are able to get it out freely. It's now open because we haven't got the blockade of e6. The only trouble is that we can't always get everything, and it does block in our knight for a little bit. We can move it to d7, which will most likely be what happens. So, the strategic themes is, like the French, it's a solid structure. It's more closed, and there's little weaknesses because you're getting such a protected system almost that it's just impossible to, deter it. So obviously, as I said with the knight, there's going to be a little bit less, piece activity and piece play, but, that's early on, and there's always going to be a downside to every opening. So, maybe you don't want to get the pieces out too quickly, and you want to focus on what's happening in the centre around here. There's always that. So, but there is always, this always goes into a very good middle game, end game, very late on. So there is that. And if you like, this is a very good opening, I'm going to say this now, if you are wanting a slower, like the French defence. If you like the French defence, this opening is pretty much the same. It's going to be a gradual counterplay. You're not going to straight away go in and, attack them within 3 moves. If you want that, play e4, e5, or even the Sicilian. But if you want this slow idea, putting your pieces into the right squares, the one that positional like play, this is another opening that you can use to favour it. Now, honestly, after you watch this video, I would watch other videos. I'm not a proper Caro-Kann player myself, though there is always ideas. I play the French as a main opening, but this is an opening I can play many times, and it is a very strong one. It's just, if you want to look over, there's many, titled players of the lower end that will have videos of completely about, certain lines of it, which we'll be going over many weeks on. So, the main variations. So, we're going to go for the first one here, the classical variation, which is one you'll see the most after knight c3. Now, this is sometimes also knight to d2. You'll see this happen a lot. And this is where we play d takes e4, knight takes e4, and bishop f5. So this is a classical variation. We want to make sure we get our bishop, outside all these pawns here before e6. That is a main thing. You always want to push e6 after the bishop. So, and there's moves most likely of knight on b to d7, and you also have knight on g to f6, and then you also have e6 and c5. Those are the 4 moves that you would like in your little, if you make like a checklist, that's what you would want to complete that. So, and it's just a solid main line opening, like the French when you'd have something like the exchange. Again, it's like the same thing. So, that is the classical variation, probably the one you'll see the most. And the advanced variation, like the French, you have it advanced here. Now, obviously, there is the same thing here that you do c5, but you do that, quite quickly, but you probably want to get the bishop out, and you could almost convert this into a French. You want to get maybe the bishop out, and then this is where you might want to try this, and it's just back to a French. But, again, whatever you want here, most likely you want to get the c5 break, and also f6 is also a huge break here. So if you play the advanced, the French theory comes into it as well. Now, again, you also have the exchanged variation, where, as it very simply says, it's like the exchanged. Now, the reason why this might be better than the French is that you have got still that centre pawn, compared to, they don't have it. So, there could always be, it's just that we don't have the c-file, which might even be better for us, because now we've opened up our knight, we've got a good bishop, and our rook can come over with a semi-open file. So, maybe that might be what wants to change it. So there is that. And, white does play c4 later on into the game, maybe not straight away, but you see this a lot. And this is where you could maybe almost get a queen's gambit declined. So, there is 2 more we're going to go over, and that is going to be the 2 knights variation. So, it is not going to be this. It's going to be e4, c6, knight c3, d5, sorry, pushing the wrong pawn, and knight f3. So again, another one you'll see. So it's going to be fast development for white here, but you can easily get fast development for black here. You've got the bishop, and we're not being attacked, as much, so we can easily, somehow get this knight and bishop. Again, you could almost use this like a London system with, once you've got this bishop out, for example, just play a few moves, you can almost get this sort of pyramid again. So there's stuff like that you might want to try. So you can always try to intertwine it with other openings. So again, that could go into main lines, one of these. And the last one is actually called the fantasy variation, because it's a little bit, weird in the fact that after this, they play the move f3. So a very weird position here. So it's aggressive, but they're trying to play for a big centre. So as long as you're able to, most likely here you would capture. It looks weird as we've given away the centre, but with these knights, something like this, and pushing e5, we can push f6 ourselves in a way. We have many ideas we can do. Sometimes just pushing e5 immediately as well in this position, because if they capture, we can immediately get them to, uncastle, because they can't castle after they take our queen. So again, a very rare opening you'll see, but again, there's that, and you'd want to just develop fast. It's like the Italian. If you're against the Italian as black, you're going to see him have this centre, and you're just going to have to work around it. But there is that. So most of the time here, out of all of the openings, we're going to see most likely a bishop, either f5 or g4, and then you're going to want to push e6. A lot of the times you're going to see a c5 pawn break, and also an f6, maybe even pawn break if they do an advanced. And also you want to try and develop fast. Now it's going to be a bit weird with the knight. Now the good thing is you can always try your best to transpose this into a French, as I've gone through it before. But again, if you don't like the French and you're just trying to play this for a different reason, do that. It's not, if you don't really like the idea of the French and you want this because you like the bishop, then by all means try and, use different theory. It's just that if you know one of them, you might be able to know the other as well, twice as better than beginner. So that is it for today's opening. Hopefully you understand what now the Caro-Kann is, and many of the normal variations around it. So there is that. So thank you, and bye bye.